Countdown.
9,
8,
7, 6,
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Well, greetings and salutations, folks. Graham Nolan is in the house, my brother. Wow, I don't even have to say thank you so much coming and hanging out. Folks are already hopping in. I know Mexican Iron Man's here, and if you haven't heard about Mike, he's a massive fan of yours. He was tweeting at me crazy, so I have to.
I know Mexican Iron Man. He's a good fan.
Got to keep some water on Mim. He'll be taking over everything. So we gotta it's love having the fans here. Polly Minion, lady, thank you so much for hopping in. And then there's our wrench. He's our mod, Chris Persia. Thank you so much. Nobody can keep me away from squealing with joy. Graham Nolan is in the house. Amen, brother. It is awesome. So yes, did a little tease last couple streams. Got a chance to get into like review mode to do my Alien Alamo. Got my different versions, different copies. Got my Lepresti version. Let's see. I got them out of order. All right, here we go. Lepresti's here. Got my signed versions. I got my little. There's my signed version. My signed prints. I set the sticker down. Sticker's over there. But I'm rolling, man. I can't wait for Giant Size. It's awesome to see you doing what you're doing. So before we get too much down that rabbit's hole, though, there could be a random person that sees this, I don't know, today, next week, 2 years from now, who knows? They don't know much about Graham Nolan. Give us the elevator pitch of how on earth did you even end up in comics and doing this for a living and convincing the parents not to lose their mind. And you're like, I'm going to draw comic book. I'm going to draw picture books for a living, mom and dad.
Well, I was born an idiot, and I had no other skills, so I decided I would go in comics. I've always loved storytelling. Come from an Irish family. My dad was a great storyteller. They're raconteurs. So I was always drawn to movies, particularly monster movies as a kid. And by the 6th grade, my teacher brought in a stack of comic books for the kids to look at during recess. And that was the first. I had comics in and out of my house throughout the years, but that's the first time that they really hit me like, hey, these are still around. These are really cool. And that's when it lit me up. I was like, oh, wow, this is really great stuff. And so I started buying comics and decided from the time I was 12 years old that that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to write and illustrate comic books.
And you were, working for the big ones for a while. You've done all of it. You've done, everything from Iron Man to Batman. You've created characters, incredible story arcs, work with other giants and that kind of thing. When you reflect on it before it kind of gave you a turn and you kind of wanted to go away from that movement, is there someone that you met or something that you were like, especially when you're in that moment, you were like, man, this is really, because obviously, like most of us, we're fans first, and it's like,
Sure.
oh man, give me one of those moments where you're like, yeah, I met this person or this happened, and I'm like, wow, I'm in this. This is cool. This is really cool.
Yeah, it was 1997. I was at San Diego Comic-Con, and I was at the DC booth, and I was signing, and my pal Chuck Dixon came up to me and told me that John Romita had just sat down at his table, and I just said, "Oh wow," because Romita was the first artist who I recognized his work. He was doing all the Spider-Man covers, and he was the art director at Marvel at the time, and he was inking other people's covers, and so that really, he was like the first guy, the first influence on me. So I wanted to go see him, so I got up and I got in line with everybody else, and I waited and waited. I finally got up to him and introduced myself. And I said, Mr. Romita, my name is Graham Nolan. I'm a huge fan of your work. And he looked at me and he goes, "The Graham Nolan, the artist?" And I said, "Yes." And he goes, "Oh, I saw your Batman Spider-Man book. I really, really like that."
Oh wow.
And I was like, "Oh, okay, I can retire now."
He knows who I
got to meet
am.
one of my
He
heroes.
knows my work. Wow.
He knows my work. He liked it. So yeah, that was one of those moments.
Yeah. So obviously I'm not an artist, so I don't have that skill set. But that is the greatest feeling, folks. I remember. So a funny version of that same thing happened for me. I did an interview with he's a theater actor for a play. My wife and I were going to go, and she was very excited about it. So the problem was the way the website that I was writing this for was like there's a video element, there's a interview, like a written version, all this stuff. So I couldn't put my name on everything, so I used my wife's name, right? So I roll up, we see him walking in the side entrance, and I kind of like, hey, I'm so and so, blah blah blah, and this is my wife Laura, blah blah blah, and he goes, "Oh, Laura, you're the one that wrote that great interview about me, and then that great write up and review, and blah blah blah." And she was like mortified, like she has no idea what he's talking about, and I'm like, I'm meeting a guy that I like and respect and enjoy, and I just it was kind of like the same kind of like, wow, they like know who you are, but it's also like, I put myself. So I actually had both ends of that embarrassment and also like the awe of like they know what you are, who you are, kind of thing. And speaking of knowing who they are, Dan Lawless up in the house. Thank you, Dan, so much. Doing cover art for Giant Size. He's come up here a week or so ago and spent some time with me right there. Yeah, I know. I have to open it up so I can share the bigger version. It's I got Dan. I'm going to have you back. My July is crazy because I was on vacation for 12 days. So it's what happens when you celebrate a birthday and don't get much time off during the year. So when this thing eventually opens, and I apologize, I've had crazy tech issues since I got back. So it'll eventually open, and I can show everybody the Dan Lawless version. So I think I ordered the hard copy. I don't think I got the Lawless copy in time. So I will be trying to pick that up in a little bit. So as you've moved through, and I know, and I don't want to go. Here we go. There it goes. Sorry, the computer's not wanting to cooperate. Nice. I love the Al Caban cover. That's what I called it. He may not have liked me doing that, but I was showing it off to the obviously, we refer to normies. For those of you that don't understand normies, yeah, you'll catch up. I was showing off the comic that I was getting to normies, and I kept referring to the Al Caban cover, and most of the people are not old enough to get that reference, but I love it. I love the detail of the guitar exploding in the lady's face and all that.
Right.
And, Dan was telling me about some of like we were going through and I was looking for Easter eggs in different things that he'd done, that kind of thing. Is there an Easter egg, maybe even not Giant Size, maybe in Alien Alamo, like you kind of put this in there, and there was like, I don't know, there was like a wrestling sweater in one. There was like, we talked about the belt buckles. We talked about different things. You sneak little Easter eggs in, little things that inspire you, sneak in. And it's like, my uncle or my friend or so-and-so will get it, but no one else knows.
Oh, absolutely, all the time. I'll put friends in. In fact, there's a friend of mine named Tom, and he's died in every comic I've done so far.
Oh, wow. Holy cow.
Yeah,
That's crazy.
yeah. He's the guy who gets shoved into the chimney in the Canoe. He's the Marine that gets bayoneted in Alien Alamo, and I have a good death for him in the Ghost of Matacumba Key coming up.
Oh, Tom, you got the legacy. There should be like a we should figure out how to thread all the images together, and it's like the
Right?
legacy,
The deaths
call it
of Tom.
the legacy and deaths of Tom. That's great, Graham. Thank you for
Yeah.
sharing that. 'Cause that is so much fun when that kind of stuff happens. And
Mhm.
yeah. And Chris Purchase says it's a brilliant cover. Yes, it is a great cover, Chris. And yeah, you know what? They're going to order extra stuff, Chris. So if you didn't get one, we're going to go back and we're going to get our other copies. That's what we do. Got to support these guys. So, Graham, when you broke away, you said, listen, I know I've been there, done that, whatever. Everybody has talked about the politics stuff ad nauseum. And I know the industry kind of, and I gotta be honest, I was kind of out when it made crazy turns. Like once you got to I basically somewhere between 2008 and 2010, there were some crazy turns that were happening that I wasn't privy to. Thank the Lord. But I have tried to read some of it since then, and it's even worse than I anticipated. Like I literally remember watching videos of like your boy Zach and go, yeah, come on. And then I would go and seek it out. Like, oh man, it's even worse. He really can't even do it justice as how bad it is. When were you getting like directives like we need you to do this or not do that, or is it just almost like the culture of the work environment started to shift? What was sort of like the kind of like, I don't want to say the straw that broke the camel's back, but some of the things that kind of were driving you away from like, I can't keep dealing with these people?
Well, it started actually in the 90s. In the late 90s, there was starting to be a shift in the mainstream comics. And it wasn't about politics at that point, because, Chuck and I, we certainly lean right. Denny O'Neil couldn't lean any further left. And yet we could work together because we shared more than we disagreed on. And we had the intentions of creating great comics. That was our focus, not to create manifestos or political polemics or anything like that. It was to tell great Batman stories, and that doesn't know any liberal or conservative biases. So we were able to do that because we were grown-ups.
And it was your job. It was your job. It was like, it's also part of it. Like for me, it's just hard to fathom. It's like your job is to sell comic books.
Yeah, well, and that's it. That is your job, is to sell as many comic books as you can. And if you start putting out something that is losing you readers, then you need to reassess what you're putting out. And today's crew, all they do, they double down. Oh, you didn't like that? Well, you'll really hate this. And they put out, they just double down on this stuff. But around the late 1980s, 1990s, the comics are getting more and more violent and overly sexualized. And I'm talking about mainstream comics. I mean, anybody who knows me, I love comics as an art form, and that means there's no limits on what kind of stories you can tell in the art form. But when you're talking about mainstream superhero comics, we're talking about product for kids, basically. And I couldn't give my daughters, who were young at the time, I used to get everything DC published because I was under contract with them, and they would send everything. So I had to cull through what I could actually give my daughters to read, because my mom, when I was a kid, she could go up to the local newsstand or whatever and just pick out just about anything, with maybe the exception of Conan, would give her pause for her young boy. But I had to actually look through stuff, and it got me thinking that, comics are starting to go in the wrong direction. Well, fast forward, politics start to get into it. Ideologues start getting into positions of power. Blacklists start being created because they don't like what you do in a voting booth, which is insane. I had gotten out of comics in the late 90s, or actually around 2000, and went into newspaper comic strips. and was in there for 13 years doing stuff with an occasional freelance comic book job. Before I got out of that and got back into comics. So, I was already out of comics. And by the time I wanted to get back into it, it was a completely different animal, and was just getting worse, and then,
Let me interrupt you just quickly to ask, as a kind of a follow up before you got too far away from it in the 90s. Is this a little bit of? I know Dan and I talked about it a little bit, and I didn't really get down this rabbit hole enough, I think. But for me, there is sort of a shift that happened. Lady Death on. Did the big two start getting too gratuitous with like TNA type stuff and weird? I don't know, just weird tropes of things that just didn't seem, I don't want to say appropriate, but universally for the general audience. Is that a little bit of what was happening, or is it other stuff in your opinion?
Yeah, that's what was happening. Violence too,
graphic violence. Like Miller starts to look PG-13. You're like, something's wrong when Miller's looking PG-13. Like Miller should be the edge of the line we don't go past, and now it's like, oh no, we're gonna blow. And again, I love Brian Pulido's work. I'm not going to diss on Lady Death and what he was able to accomplish, but he kind of like caused a shift that we didn't get back from. I gotta be honest. So I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I wanted to get that. Yeah, no, I don't mean to throw him under the bus, because obviously it created a whole bunch of other stuff. So
it's been a shift, and it's been going. The people that really knew comics, how to produce comics, how to publish them, how to edit them, started getting out of the business, and we're left with interns and editorial wannabes that haven't been trained properly, that don't even know the characters, don't even know the background, don't even know the business in the industry.
Sure.
And we're getting comic books of people sitting in pizza parlors talking for an entire issue instead of battling
pages of it. Oh, it's unbearable. And then the use of pastels. Oh my God, the use of pink, purple, and mauves, and oh my gosh, it makes my head hurt. I'm like, there's no primary colors in some of these comic books. Mim's just showing off. He's over here. I'm the greatest Graham Nolan fan there is. Look at this guy. It's like he's trying to show off. I already showed off some of my comic books. Alien Alamo, he's got all that, but he's also Monster Island, Return. He's got Black Book. Mim, you're just showing off. We got it. We know you're nuts. We know you're crazy. He's in it for it all. Predator 2, JLA stuff. He's got it all. Folks, if you're missing something, talk to him. He's also a totally awesome fan of your creations and stuff like that. So we're having him in here, Mim, so we can talk about some of this cool stuff. So you were doing the comic strip stuff, going into like that for a long, long while. What sort of inspired you to go, you know what? I'm going to throw my hat in the ring here and look at maybe some self-publishing stuff, or try to spread my wings a little bit.
That started in 1998 with that same thing, that I couldn't give my kids any of the comics that I like to read. So I decided I was going to write and illustrate a comic for them. So I created Monster Island, and I created my company, Compass Comics, in 1998. And, unfortunately, there's a lot of things about timing. And the timing of that release was just as the market was crashing. And so it didn't, it paid for itself, but it didn't pay me to do it. So I had to go back into the gulag and get work from the mainstream guys. But Monster Island was very good to me because I used samples of it to try to get it syndicated as a strip, and that's how King Features found me and hired me to do Rex Morgan MD and eventually the Phantom for them. So as comics were changing and editors and contacts were leaving, I was making new inroads in another form, and it was basically a lifeboat for me for a while, until the soul-sucking aspect of a daily strip got to me.
Sure.
And there's a lack of creativity, and it forced me to do more creator-owned stuff.
Let me say hey to Mags in the chat. Mags kind of co-hosts my Pops Talk twice a month with me. She was here last night. She's there lurking. So we love you, Mags. Thanks for hopping in. And she's a bit of a normie and a noob in some of this stuff, Graham. So we're trying to show her some great stuff and stuff to get. We were showing off your stuff last night to her. She's got tons of some of your fellow independent creator stuff already. So we got her headed in the right direction of what to read. So it's great to see. My friend from college, one of the first things he said to me was ask you about the Phantom strip, because I guess he was a consumer of your Phantom strip regularly, and I thought that was just great. I was like, no offense, but that wasn't the first thing that popped in my mind, but that was the first thing out of his mouth, and I was like, oh, that's so cool. It's because to me, and I don't know, how does it feel when you've had so many fingers and so many different pieces? You touch people in all sorts of different ways, and I guess I know obviously you got this big massive. I'm trying to say, how long can I go without saying the name? That's actually how I've approached this. You and I talked before we agreed to do this. Like we would talk about your creation. I'm trying to see.
Bane.
I was trying to see if I could get through the whole thing without even saying it. Treat it like a 4-letter word. It was like a little joke. I was like, what if I could do it? But to realize that you've touched people in other ways. When my friend, the first thing out, he talked about the Phantom. Mim went on and on. He posted 3, 4. He got to this before he mentioned the 4-letter word. So I'm like, man, that's really cool though. You touched a lot of people in a lot of different ways with your characters, and now the stuff that you own, it's even got to be more exciting because now you're seeing it get wings. Because obviously you mentioned Monster Island, and I didn't want to promote it through Amazon, but there is an Amazon link to get like the hard copies are out there, so you can get hardback versions of not only Monster Island, but also Return to Monster Island as easily as through Amazon. I don't know if you have those on Compass or not, but there are through Amazon as well. Mm-hmm. And I know it's stuff that you're still dabbling with all this stuff that you get to own. It's like yours, and that's so cool to see. What motivates you now? Like, how do you write every day, draw every day? Nope. How do you structure like moving forward? Because this is like almost like, I want to say new territory here, because it's not. You've been doing this for so long, but the shackles are off. Graham Nolan can be Graham Nolan. Graham Nolan is Graham Nolan's boss. Graham Nolan is Graham Nolan's editor.
No. Julia Nolan is Graham Nolan's
boss. No disrespect, Mrs. Nolan. I apologize.
Let's be honest.
I refer to the First Lady regularly on my show. Great. Anything that we do great is usually a tribute to the great person that's behind us and supporting us. So I do apologize, Absolutely. Mrs. Nolan. But I think you understand where I'm coming from, right? So it's almost like, okay, how do you structure basically Compass Comics? How do you sort of structure things?
It's interesting because you wear so many hats. How you structure it depends on which hat you have to put on that day.
Sure.
For when Giant Size Two-Fisted Manly Tales was running, I was publisher, art director, and marketer. So those are the hats I had to switch. I didn't do any drawing for that book at all. I was basically in a executive position, except for the writing aspect. So my days were busy on the computer, trying to get the word out, creating assets and memes and stuff that I could promote and all that stuff. Now, when other things come out like Alien Alamo or the next one, The Ghosts of Metacumba Key, those are stuff that I'm writing and illustrating. So right now, while Giant Size is in the process of being put together and getting ready to get sent off to the printer, I have some time I'm working on the script for the next book, Ghosts of Metacumba Key. So that's pretty much how it is you're constantly switching hats each day, and sometimes a couple times in the day.
What is sort of your process? Because I'm a writer first. For me, I can't draw a lick, but I like to write. Do you have like a notebook all the time? Do you kind of have little notepads? How do you kind of like, oh man, this just pops in my head. I got to write this down real quick, blah, blah, blah. Every day.
The yellow legal pad is my friend. So I write stuff down. I start with an idea, or sometimes I start with a title, that comes to me and I'm like, wow, that could make a great story. And I go from there.
Okay.
But typically it's a concept, and then it becomes organic and it starts to move around as I start to write things down. I have a penchant for cross genres,
Mhm.
and a lot of times if I've got an idea and it just doesn't seem like it's working out, I throw another genre aspect into it, and it tends to like, oh, now that's cool, you know.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, we cowboys and aliens, man. This is freaking great. I'm loving this stuff, man. We get
Right.
to um is there a character from the past? Sorry, I kind of went past the past, but let me look back for a second. Now you look
Yeah.
back, especially. Is there one that you're like, I enjoyed doing this one? I wish I had had opportunities to have more control or something with this one. And then there's one like I really hated doing that character, that kind of thing.
Um, yeah. Well, I'll start with the hated first. The 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 worst project I ever worked on was I think JLA versus Predator.
Okay.
And the problem with that book was that it started off as a great idea. John Ostrander wrote this really cool script that was sort of a throwback to those old JLAs where they'd meet like their doppelgangers,
Okay. Yep.
the Injustice League type of thing. And only this time it's predators. So there was going to be a Superman predator, a Batman predator, a Green Lantern predator, blah blah blah. So I had to go and I designed these outfits for these predator versions of the superheroes, and utilizing the predator font, if you will, those symbols that they wear, to create something that, so when you looked at that predator, you knew that was the Superman predator, that was the Batman predator, all that kind of stuff. So I sent it into Raspler. He says, yep, looks great. Go ahead. 36 pages later, he emails me and says, yeah, the designs weren't approved by Dark Horse. They want to have
Oh
the
no.
predators in their
Oh
regular
no.
costumes. And I'm like, dude, you got one job. You're the freaking editor. And you're working with another publisher. You should have run all that stuff by him before telling me to go ahead. And I had to go back and rework a lot of those panels, put them in those really complicated predator outfits. I mean, it was a nightmare. I almost gave up doing comics after doing that one.
Oh, it's got to be 36 pages is a lot of work too, folks. I mean,
Oh,
trust me, there's not an additional check coming to redo 36 pages. It wasn't like he was going to get some extra money to go back. So
nope.
Awesome One loves nicknames. So this is our current nickname. We'll see what else he comes up with. So Yo Papa Pops and Hawaiian Graham. Look at that. So you're getting the Hawaiian. You do look like you're hanging out on the beach. It's
Yeah, I'm Florida, Graham.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. Yeah. I mean, it's funny you say that because that has come up. That has been a theme through folks that I've talked to for years. It's like some weird twist comes down from the high ups that changes the direction. Like we thought we were doing X, and then all of a sudden I got to redo pages. I got to rewrite storylines. I got to do this. And you're like, oh my gosh. And I mean, I guess it happens to all of us because I work in corporate America and that kind of happens too from time to time. But, like I said, though, I'm on an hourly rate or a salary where you're like, no, this is what you get paid. And it's like, well, crap, man. Yeah, oh man. Yeah, that's got to be brutal. That's got to be brutal. I got a feeling, folks, don't bring him some JLA Predators. Man, don't let him sign. Don't try to ask him to sign those. They're painful memories. Or have him redo them. Have him go in there and try to change something. That's what I want. Or where's the original art when they were all like the different version? That's what I would want. Yeah, I don't want the
I can show you I can show you panels that I didn't change, but somebody else did.
Oh my gosh.
That's not even my art in it.
Jeez Louise. Yes.
Yeah, not good. But
no.
To answer your other half of your question, like, is there anything that, I would love to have worked on that I didn't get to, that type of thing? It would be the Fantastic Four.
Oh, that would be so awesome. Yeah, I could see that.
I would have loved to have a run on the Fantastic Four if they would say, hey, just run with it, do what you want with it. And
you want to write and draw, or is it a writer?
Write and draw it, yeah.
Write and draw. Awesome. Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Is Dr. Doom to the normies more underrated than any other character? Because that's one of my theories. There's like a handful of characters that normies just don't understand how cool they are, how powerful they are, how influential. And Dr. Doom is nearly at the top of that list, or at least arguably at the top of that list.
I think the Submariner is at the top of that list. You
Yeah.
know, you look at what they just released for the image of the new Submariner. You know, he's been getting more, you know, soy boyed down in the comics, and now he's Aztec or something in this new movie. The
Yes,
Submariner
because
that I
quote,
love.
if you read the press release, remember quote, because we don't want the audience to be confused, because you know we might confuse him with Aquaman. So in their press, when you read between the lines, they were basically calling this dumb. That was basically how that played out.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I got an idea. Since his name is Namor, which is Roman spelled backwards, and Bill Everett designed all of the undersea Atlantean stuff based on Roman architecture, why not start there?
Yeah. Yes.
That makes sense.
Awesome when he brings up there's a nose ring. Yeah, I know, man. Just don't.
Yeah.
Your head's gonna hurt, man. Yeah, Namor's great. That's a great point. Yeah. No, fantastic. You doing Fantastic Four would be really, really awesome. Are there any? Let's see. If we did 12, I'll say it this way. What I loved about your work, and I totally understand where you guys have to be coming from working on Batman for as long as you did. Like drawing and writing the Batman part probably had to just get tedious, but at least there was a way to rotate villains and stuff in and out. You weren't stuck having to write that all the time. So it'd be cool. Like, all right, this is going to be our once or twice a year to do a Penguin, or this is our once or twice a year to do this. So at least it was a rogue gallery that was big enough to give you some variation in addition to the stuff. What would be the top of your list for that Fantastic Four thing that would be like, okay, listen, I know, let's say I have a year, I can do, let's see, 2 or 3. What are a couple of things that like, it would be cool to do something with Mole Man, for instance, something like that?
Well, I would do something with Submariner.
Yeah.
And I would do, I had an idea for a story where they discover where the ultimate nullifier is.
Ooh,
and it's it's buried in the ice in one of the moons of Jupiter, you know, one that's covered with ice and water. And the Submariner has to go with the Fantastic Four because they need somebody who can live underwater.
Sure.
To go and retrieve the ultimate weapon, you know.
And all that tension of having him around. Oh boy, that sounds great. That sounds
that would be a lot of fun.
That would. That's awesome. Yeah. Awesome. That's good. So let's get to independent stuff. You've dabbled, you've had some ups and downs a little bit, maybe as you kind of started. How has been the first few years? Now you've got, you know, a couple of things under your belt. Giant Size is getting ready to go to print. You're, you know, writing scripts for more stuff. Talk about that feeling. Like, what's it feel like? What is, if there was like a person that's still kind of like, maybe they're struggling through some of their learning curves and their lumps, or they're thinking about doing it. What are some of the things that you're experiencing and positives and encouragements that you'd have for some of them?
Well, let me tell you about my mistakes first and how I learned from them. The first thing I tried to crowdfund, I used Kickstarter, and Chuck and I tried to crowdfund Joe Frankenstein. And, you know, this is back in like 2014, something like that, maybe even longer, maybe 2013. And it was a complete disaster. we didn't know what we were doing. We thought that our name brand would be enough, and it is not. You have to reach out. You have to be able to go out and find your audience. And the best way to do that is with YouTube, you know, and start a channel and start promoting your work and getting your audience in one place early before you launch. Because if you try to rely on social media, it's a lie. The algorithms will prevent you from getting the information out to as many. I have almost 5,000 friends on Facebook, and the same 200 see my stuff. And that's the algorithm. And less than that, if you put it as a hyperlink, if you link it to someplace else outside of Facebook, even less will see it.
Wow.
You know, I once posted a picture of a turtle that I found in my backyard, and it had like 800 likes within a day. But I'll post a piece of artwork with a link to Indiegogo and maybe 50.
Wow. Yeah.
So I got my ass kicked by a turtle.
You look pretty good though. You look pretty good. I mean, I think you may have had more hair before the turtle incident, but we're not going to really go back there and live in the past. We're just going to keep moving forward, keep moving
I'll
forward.
say this: he was a tough turtle.
Yeah. So, I mean, learning from those failures, learning that YouTube is really, really a powerful tool. I had to learn Twitter as a networking tool because I've deleted Twitter twice. I've like been through that rigmarole a couple times and finally like, you know what? So then I kind of thought of it as a way of having like everyone to, it's like I always keep referring to email, but I actually mean DM on Twitter. Like very few people do I email with, but I DM through Twitter. It's like, oh wait, so this is like a networking tool, and all the rest of it I just don't pay attention to. It's like if anything, I just know I'm just having fun. I don't look at it as any. But the law of numbers. I mean, I don't want to derail too much into Ripaverse, but when you got 500,000 followers, and even though he's blowing up to what 15,000 supporters. 15,000 out of 500,000. Think about the law of numbers there, folks. It is a very difficult, challenging prospect. No offense, to get our money. To be honest, it's hard. It's a lot of work.
It is hard,
especially right now. We get economic problems that make it worse.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You know, they say that you need 1,000 super fans. Those are the people that will actually spend money on your products, whether that be in crowdfunding or some other venture. If you have 1,000 super fans, you can make a living. So that's your magic number. You gotta have 1,000. And then those are those people that come back each time. You know, they're not just drive-bys. So it's important to build that relationship with them. Reach out to them. You know, be accessible. Be a nice guy. You know, don't be a dick.
You're always looking for more because you're going to bleed some out over time too, right? So let's say you have 1,000. Let's say next month you might lose 50. You got to go get 55 more. You got to, you know. So people don't want to understand that it's not a static world that we live in, and I'm just as guilty, right? So I admit it. I didn't get Dan Lawless's cover. Economic stuff, right? You can only spend. I got a whole stack like this right next to me. I can only do so much at one time, and it's like, oh crap, I missed this one or missed that one. Oh, well, I'm going to get it next time. So it's a constant thing that 1,000 even. So I hope we don't spin our wheels too much as sounding negative because you've at least gotten over this first hump with some of that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. So what's next? I know Mim asked for what's your next campaign launch, and then you've kind of teased a little bit about what you're writing or whatever. Mm-hmm. But kind of like what's the feeling of how you structure your YouTube kind of marketing at that point? Like, how do you kind of like, you gave some pointers, obviously, just be nice to your customers and thank them and not be a jerk. What's your kind of strategy in that?
You got to respect them. There's so many people in this business that talk trash about the readers and about the fans. You know, if their book isn't selling, you know, they'll call them racists or homophobes or something because they didn't like the content of that book. Well, they didn't like it. They didn't buy it. They exercise their rights as free people to not buy your crap. And the problem is the creators are unwilling to take acceptance for the crap they want.
Very true.
You know, give people what they want. Treat them with respect.
Yeah, there it is right there. Treat them with respect. And Dan's saying it too, but first we'd say hey to Gray in Japan. Wakazashi Tea House is here. So hail to Gray. He is a huge Batman fan, just so you know. Gap After Dark, formerly known as Gap Stargate. You're Gap Stargate to me, brother. He's saying hey to us. So that's pretty cool. And Dan says, the new industry is two products, your comic and your personality. Marvel and DC still only offer one. Listen, I told Dan, I'll tell you two. You know what? That's a good point, Graham. That's a good point. I'm not enjoying anything. My kids got me the Marvel app for Christmas, thinking they were being helpful, and all they do is make me read old comic books. Is all that's actually happening on that app. Anytime I try to dabble with anything in the last 10 years, it's been brutally bad. Yeah. I tell you, it is really, really cool though the way you guys do the YouTube stuff, because you guys are pretty much who you are. Like, it doesn't take very many videos, folks, to figure out who Graham Nolan is and who Dan Lawless is and who Aaron Lepresti is and Billy Tucci. And they share story. I mean, man, some of the stories that you guys get into, man, it's a blast.
When you're broadcasting enough, you can't hide. You know, eventually your true self is going to come out as you become comfortable. And Some people don't have the personality for it, and maybe they ought to avoid it. Uh, but most of us we're just like all the professionals. We're all just regular guys, that like to hang out, love to bust balls, have fun, tell stories, and have a good laugh. A good laugh, a good cigar, a good glass of whiskey, whatever. That's just who we are.
It is a blast. And let me ask you first. Hey, Dean Krantz. Dean Krantz is always up in here. That's great to see. Dean made it in time, so that's pretty cool. Awesome one says Marvel hates fans. How can that last? Actually, DC hates fans too, Dean. Awesome one. Yeah, but so let me ask. So of all this stuff, you've gotten to know these guys. You've known them for years at this point, but is there one of their comics that they've done where you're like, man, this is good stuff? Is one of those that you like that kind of is at the top of the? I don't want to. I guess that's kind of not a fair question, is it? Because it's like if you don't name them, it almost says the other ones aren't as good. But that's not what I meant. Right, I was trying to put somebody. I was trying to put somebody at the top. I was trying to give someone some kudos, but then as I finished that statement, I'm like, I could just see the look on Billy Tucci's face, going, "Oh, he didn't say me, that bastard."
I'm just going to say honestly, I back a lot of these things because I do like them. There's so many good comics that are coming out from these guys,
yes,
including Billy and Aaron and what's his name? The guy who did Groken, Kenneth Rocafort. His book looks freaking amazing. Andy Smith.
And there's that frog guy too. That frog guy's all right. That frog guy's okay, I guess.
Yeah, of course. Ethan.
He can draw a little bit. I've seen him draw a couple things that are all right.
Absolutely.
if he focused on some detail, you know.
Well, there are projects that that if I don't back it, it's not necessarily because it's not good. It's just because it's not something that's in my wheelhouse.
Sure.
It's just not the kind of genre or whatever that I enjoy. If it's a friend, I'll likely just back it. Give a donation or something if I don't want the book, or but I'll still donate or back the book even if it's something that isn't in my wheelhouse, if they're a friend of mine.
Awesome one says he's addicted to Michael Bancroft now, and EVS is a guilty pleasure. I don't know much about Michael Bancroft's work, so I may have to spend some time.
Michael does the Lucent.
Okay.
He has a great show, broadcast from down under in Australia.
Oh, that's always going to be fun. I'm going to enjoy that.
Yeah, I've been on his show a couple times. Really, really good guy.
I get our buddy Mike Barron next week. That's going to be a blast. I haven't had a chance to talk to him and support. I just got him in line to get my thin blue line, so I can't wait.
Nice.
Okay, Gray. I'm going to ask Gray's question. Don't shoot the messengers. He wants to know if you've read the recent Batman 125 stunning art by Jorge Jimenez. I will say I haven't, and I don't foresee reading the new comic book.
No, I haven't read anything from Marvel or DC in years.
When you I want to go back just a little bit to that because it's just fascinating to think about a question I just popped in my head was, when you have something as big as the Batman responsibility, who does the main editor, or when you get hired for the job, where are like the bumpers on the bowling alley to like, this is kind of what we're going for with this kind of look and tones and things like that? Do they have like a structure? Because obviously things evolve over time. Like the Batman today is not the Batman of the 90s, which is not the Batman of the 70s and so on. So what kind of instruction do they even give you guys? Like, how does that kind of work? Sorry, that's kind of, we're going backwards again, I know, but
that's okay. I don't know what they do today, but back then when Denny O'Neil was the gatekeeper of all things Batman, he was more concerned with the writers following certain structures and edicts. The artists could do their interpretation as they pleased, as long as they didn't do anything that was insulting to the character. I mean, you're basically you're the shepherd of this character when you're given the opportunity to work on him. You have to honor its history and stuff and not tear it down. And Denny was really good at that.
That's true. Yeah, his stuff has got such a strong legacy to it. Just such a formative era of that character for sure. So,
Mhm.
yeah, folks are talking about just the PR. Any news is good news. So now that Rip is blown up, Lotus Eaters, British YouTube News, they're all talking it. Raise Your Fist, Comicsgate, love it. I love it. Get you in the headlines. Get you in the headlines. Get a copy of Giant Size when they're gonna be like, we missed out. Yeah, you did. Yeah, you did.
Well,
Do
if
you
you missed
think
out on the Shinu or Alien Alamo, you can still get those on my
Compass?
website,
Right, Compass Comics. Links down below in the description. So,
compasscomics.com. Yep.
follow up from Gray. It's like, do you think modern editing has become overly limiting to creators?
No, I think modern editing doesn't exist. If it did, half the stuff wouldn't be published. I think where the overreach is that the editors are handcuffed by upper management.
Okay.
Back years ago, Denny O'Neil ran the Bat Office and everything that was Batman related. Mike Carlin ran the Superman office and everything that Superman was related. Other editors had Green Lantern and Wonder Woman and various JLA characters and so on and so forth. But they had the autonomy to set the direction and tone of those books. Now all this stuff comes from on high. When DiDio was there, he was making all the decisions about the directions of all these books and where they were going. And that's just soul sucking. If you're an editor, give them the power to edit the book and push it in the direction that they want to see it. And if they're any good, they're going to hire a good team that they're going to trust and allow them to do what they do, write and illustrate it. Just get out of the way. If some of these executives were so great, they'd be down there doing it.
No, you're absolutely right. It just seems like I don't know. The further they are from it, the worse it's going to be. They don't have the passion that the artists and creators are going to have. They're not the ones that are living it. Chris Purchase says it really well too, because he quotes, "Shepherds to the lore." That's a great phrase. It should be a shirt. That should be a shirt.
Shepherds to the lore.
Shepherds to the lore. Yes. That's Shepherds to the Lore. The legacy of Denny O'Neil. Oh, yeah, that's fair. Yeah. So now we're through these campaigns and that kind of thing, and everyone's kind of been on there. They've dropped their little hints. They picked up on some of the breadcrumbs. Give us a little timeline of what happens in the second half of 2022 for you. Like, I know you're writing right now. Giant Size will be at print. Those kinds of things. Give me a little timeline of Compass Comics in the next few months.
Yeah, the next one I'm going to launch is a campaign for a Shinu plushie. I've been wanting to do one of these things, but if you've ever supported anything by Compass Comics, you know that I do everything in the United States, everything that's possible to do in the United States. I do all my printing and manufacturing and all that stuff. I won't go overseas unless there's no way I can get it done. And I had a hard time finding a company that would manufacture my plushie in the United States, but I finally did. I finally found one, and I'll be starting that within the next month. As I got to get the files to the printer for Two-Fisted Manly Tales, and then there'll be a downtime for me because it's in the printer's hand and it's on his schedule at that point. So within that period, I will be working on not only the plushie launch, but then working on the third installment of the Nolan verse, which is called The Ghosts of Matacumba Key. And I'm finished, I'm finalizing my script on that right now. And then I've got some of the character designs done. And, once I get that going and get some covers done and more illustrations, I'll have assets to use to build the campaign. So there'll be 2 more campaigns for 2022.
Awesome. 2 more.
And then, yep.
Awesome.
It's those 2, the plushie and Ghost of Matacumba Key. And then in 2023, there'll be the return of Joe Frankenstein.
Yes.
And possibly the 3rd installment of the Monster Island trilogy, Escape from Monster Island.
Oh, that sounds great. Oh man. See, this was such a good idea. We got the updates. Everything from the Shinu plushie coming 2022 to more Monster Island in a year. Oh, it's a good time. It's a good time. I don't care what they say about the comics industry. I can pick and choose. I can dabble. I can find good stuff. It's out there.
Hey,
Getting to
you know
know.
what? This is the greatest time in the comics industry.
Yeah.
The only lament is that what we used to hail as the comic industry, the big two, are going down in flames. Now, bear in mind that this is an industry that, for the bulk, well, until recent years, was a monopoly. You know,
Yes.
whether the government recognized it and went after them or not, it was a monopoly. Because if you wanted to be a comic book artist and actually make somewhat of a living, you had to work for the big two, and the big two owned distribution, so that cut you out of trying to get stuff done as a small fry. They own the distribution. They controlled page rates, and they own everything that you create for them. And in return, they'll offer you a pittance, and a regular paycheck. And that's gone. They're burning down. They have no control. Their distribution system is crumbled. And now we don't need it. The paradigm has shifted, and the creators, the actual people with talent, not the people in suits telling everybody what they can do or what they can or cannot earn. We can go directly to our backers. We can go to our fans directly, and they can have direct access to us. So this once insulated comic book business that we loved has now really blossomed into this great creative endeavor that there's no stopping you with your ideas. You can get it out. You can do what you want, and nobody can tell you that it's a bad idea. Only your backers can tell you that, and they'll do that with their wallets.
Absolutely.
Or they'll tell you it's great.
And it's just been great. Like, I think there's such a weird dichotomy that I kind of walked back into, especially the last 3 years, where it's just like, what is happening on Twitter? Like, why am I being blocked by Dan Slott? I asked a question. I wasn't even, it had nothing to do with politics. Why am I being blocked? And that's when I learned about Comicsgate adjacent terms like that I think is so like middle school. And then I find out that every one of these guys I liked in my Nexus years of, the late 80s and 90s, every one of them are making their own comics. I'm like, oh, okay. I didn't know this was a thing now. It's what we do now. I'm like, oh, it's like a third thing. It's just all a bunch of little company. Oh, this is great.
Yeah.
It's just like everything else. The technology has evolved as well. Like, it's so much easier to be a printer and put out quality, with the paper and the printing. It's not like, going back to the 90s or the 2000s where it's like, what it would have cost you to print and things of that nature. So I think we're really, really on the curve with that kind of stuff. So he said, Dan says, it's the birth pains of something greater. I don't even know it's birth pains. I think it's literally an explosion. I literally think we're seeing this with Ripaverse. I think it's literally gas on the fire that you guys have already started. Because to me, it's a conversation starter. I had a normie ask me for the Ripaverse, and I says, yeah, whenever you check that out, let me know, and I'll let you know about some of the other creators you can look up at what they've done. And he was like, oh, really? Okay. So I was like, okay, see, I got an in. All I needed was ends. That's all you kind of need. So Gray wants to know if Compass Comics will ship to Japan or not.
Oh, absolutely. I shipped a few copies of the Shinu to Japan during the campaign, and the guy took a picture of it in Tokyo, holding it up. It's so cool that the Shinu
awesome.
Made it to Tokyo.
That's great. Shinu's gone global. Shinu's gone global. Get your plushie, Gray. It'll be coming soon.
That's right.
I am stoked watching folks like Graham and EVS and Zach and Ripa tossing the old system in the trash heap. Getting new characters and stories is exciting. Amen. And I actually enjoy folks owning their own stuff. I know it sounds crazy, but I always loved the indie tables at cons because people were so invested in their stuff. They were so excited. And I didn't have this experience with Graham, so don't read into it. I would meet some of the professionals supposed to be doing an interview, and they don't even look at you. They're doing their thing. Now, I know everybody's got to make a living. They got to do their commissions or whatever. And I'm the pain in the butt press guy trying to cover an article. But you get the indie guys, man, they got to tell you everything. Let me show you pictures. Let me give you one if you'll write about it. I mean, it was just like, oh, to know now this has gone global, right? And we don't live near each other. Oh, here we are chatting. You know how hard this would have been to coordinate back in the day? You know, it would have been, it's a hassle. So I don't even really came up last night about even going to cons. I'm like, first off, it's big and crowded. It's kind of a hassle. I could do more in a week. If I can line you guys up 2-3 times a day and do more in a week, or you figure out how to do a panel or something. Who knows? I mean, it's just the world's changed. So, and hey to Zach's in the chat. I'll be on with Zach's. So if y'all are subscribed to Zach's, love Zach's and the boys, I'll be on with Zach's tonight. We're going to talk about buddy movies, mostly buddy stuff, buddy TV, buddy comics, but mostly buddy movies. So I'll be on with Zach's tonight. So Stephen Ransom's here. Love you, buddy. Indie is as American and free as it gets. Amen, brother. Amen.
That's right. We were founded by independents, people with that independent spirit.
Yes. What is the things that you do to be in the mood? Is there a music that you do? Is there sort of like a meditation that you do? What do you do to kind of keep Graham Nolan's I gotta bear down. I'm drawing, I'm writing, I'm doing something. Is there certain things that is in your
it depends on which aspect of the job you're talking about. For writing, I tend to need to be outside to get my thought processes cleared. Anywhere near the water is always good for me.
All right.
It calms me down. It opens my mind. And then I can start writing stuff down. Then you can go into a studio, office, whatever, and type it all up. But like when I'm out with my notepads and stuff, sometimes I'll take my truck, go down to the lake, put a chair in the bed, have a cigar, and just sit there and jot down.
Those are the best photos, by the way. Those are the best photos. Graham, how many sit-ups do you do a day? Like you're still so freaking ripped. It's embarrassing, by the way. You're making the rest of us look so freaking bad. I tweeted this photo. You tweeted this photo. You're there, you got your stogie, you're looking out. It's all buff and ripped. And I showed my wife and said, see, this is a guy I love who makes me look bad. She looks and is like, what? How much is he older than you? I'm like, I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to talk about it. Just let it be. Let it be. Yeah.
I'm going into I'm 60 and I want to go into 70 healthy and strong. So
you're doing great, man. It's awesome. So
thanks.
All right, so let's see. Dean Krantz. Let's see what Dean Krantz says. Funny story. All right, Dean, let's go. Went to San Diego Comic-Con in 1987. Nothing like it is today, and I would not want to go to the current version. Back then, real nerds went to cons. Yeah, Marvel messed it up for everybody, bro. Once Marvel blew up and simultaneously Star Wars blew up right behind it, it changed the culture. It just got way too crowded. And actually, funny story, here in Florida, there's a Tampa Comic-Con. Used to be at like a hotel. Those were always the best. Like that was like my memory of my first interview. I actually got a chat with EVS in 2003. Like there was no crowd to push me out of the way. You know what I mean? And Walking Dead blew up. They ended up with like 3 people from The Walking Dead, and then it become like the fire department problem where you have too many people in the building kind of thing, and then it become the convention center, and then it spiraled out of control from there. So
when I was a kid, the first convention I went to was at this little hotel in Titusville, Florida. It was basically just a dealer's room, and Star Trekkers and stuff. And I thought I was in seventh heaven because I'd never seen so many old comics before. It wasn't because there weren't comic shops or anything like that. And then I went to the Orlando Con that Jim Ivey used to run in 1977. And Jim Ivey just passed away at like 96 years old.
Oh, wow.
In 1977, I went to my first con that was actually a Comic Con in Orlando and had real guests. So I got to meet my first professional, C.C. Beck, the creator of Captain Marvel. Wow. I got him to sign a copy of Captain Marvel Adventures. Roy Crane, my favorite cartoonist, was supposed to be the main guest, and he died the week before. And then I also got to meet Walter Gibson, who used to write as Maxwell Grant and was the creator of The Shadow.
Oh man, yes. Oh god, I love The Shadow. Even like the reboots, like wasn't it like late 80s and early 90s? They did like the reboots of Shadow and stuff, and it wasn't quite as good, but it was still really good stuff compared to some stuff. But Zach says, "Isn't it weird we have one of the greatest comic artists of all time, but I just want to hit the gym with him?" I'm like, yes, it is weird. And I couldn't agree more, Zach. I'm with you, brother. I'm with you, man. Trust me, if you're not following Graham on Twitter, it is fun. And I have to be honest, we talked about it last night with Mags, like the name, the giant size, two-fisted manly tales, the trolling, the subconscious trolling of the comic book industry and these artists, these pompous elites that take themselves way too seriously for making picture books for a living. Like, guys, please stop with the platform nonsense. It's a picture book. Please just stop pretending. And he like trolls them with this title, he's got his cigar, or got his pictures in the, they can't stand us being outside. Graham, you know that, right? It's all these pictures of us, you at the lake, or if I'm on the farm, if I post pictures of any of our animals, it just, I'll get DMs from people. I'm like, I don't even know how you have my thing. It's like, why do you have animals? I know, please just go away. Just stop. Just I just ignore them. So anyway.
Yeah, I chose that title to trigger them, because the whole idea
absolutely
of giant size two-fisted manly tales was to celebrate toxic masculinity, because it's constantly being put down in the media, men being men. And I thought, oh man, I had no intention of doing this book, to be honest. I had my plan for my Nolan verse going forward, and I knew which books I was going to do. But last summer, the bug hit me again. It came first with the title, and I'm like, oh man, I gotta do this anthology book, So I called up Bo Smith, Chuck Dixon, Mike Barron, and Kevin Grievous, one after another, sitting out back. I was having a cigar in my patio out back, and I just got on the phone, called these guys, and I said, what do you think of this idea? And they're like, I'm in.
Yes. Graham needs to whip all these soft comic folks, and they can't handle this nonsense, man. They couldn't handle stuff that I do, and I'm a wuss compared to Graham. So awesome one. Listen, we're gonna have to negotiate here. Comicsgate block party outside of San Diego would be great. We're not going to California, but we'll do it in Florida. That's where I am. So PopsCon, maybe someday. PopsCon, we'll bring them to Florida, where it's freer.
Well, we're talking about a fan fest,
Absolutely. Let's do it. Let's do it. I haven't done a panel.
In Orlando, but there's a lot of hurdles to come, get over, and of course COVID slowed all that down. But eventually, I think we're going to do that. And I've been doing, every time I go to a show, I do the Graham Nolan Hawaiian Shirt, Cigar, and Whiskey Festival, and that usually takes place Saturday night at the shows. We all meet in the hotel. You wear a flowered shirt like this so that people know you're part of the group. Bring a cigar, your favorite whiskey. We go outside. We sit around, talk about comics or whatever. It's just I think it's a great way to mingle with the fans in a much more relaxed atmosphere and talk about, stuff that we all love. It's a ball.
It is. It's freaking great. It's awesome. So, well, guys, I don't want to take too much of Mr. Nolan's time up. He's been so gracious to us. Listen, connect to Compass Comics. There's links below. He's on Twitter. Indiegogo stuff's coming. Giant size will land. So if there's any extra copies, things like that, because they're going to be. You got to scoop them up fast. You got Plushy Shanu coming. You got another title, Nolan versus expanding. We got 2 years spelled out for you, including The Escape from Monster Island. Oh, man, it's so freaking great. Oh, it's so awesome. So thanks to Graham for spending time with us, folks. And I will be back later tonight in an hour, actually, with noob reviews. We're going to do more comic book talk, like how newbies get into comics, giving her some advice, talking about her excitement, stuff she's into. She wants to poke around in this old brain of all this nonsense of what they should read, and so how I got into comics and all the crazy warts and damage that's up in here. So we're going to do that. Mike Barron will be with me next Wednesday. We don't have Pops Talk next Wednesday. We have Mike Barron.
Nice.
So that's awesome. That'll be 5:30 Eastern time.
Great writer.
Yes. Fantastic. And want to have more artists on. I have more creators on, more writers. Just want to talk about good stuff. Oh, yes, I do. I do have a confirmation. Oh, I don't have the book with me. I'm reading the book at work on break. There's a book called The Fuhrer and the Tramp. It is an indie comic that Project Storytime showed off during one of my show and tell streams. I tweeted about it. The creator said they would come on. I had to order a copy because I didn't have it. He had it. So they're coming on, finalizing those details for the end of the month, because my July is crazy because you lose 2 weeks. But like the folks, Graham Nolan was influential in my comic book collecting and reading career and all that kind of stuff. So I like I said, I don't get to say high recommend often. That's a high recommend creator right there, folks. Make tomorrow better than today. Go out there, be blessed, right? Just be a blessing to the world, make things around you better, you know. And as I've said, the inspiration for the Tuesday shows is talk hard, be honest, be genuine, don't be afraid, and take time to chill. Here's Bob Ross to remind you how to do that.
Bob Ross, all I do is chill. My life is a thrill, for real, Bob Ross. I be too calm for the drama. You don't want to cause a